TGN Nation fam, what is up? What is happening? We are here for week 10 of the week 10 DFS top low owned plays. It's coming from me, Ryan Williams. You can find me on Twitter at RyanAlexander_W, and appreciate you guys rocking with me all year long. Let's try and get out there and get this money on some guys who might be flying under the radar. And we will start it off as usual with the quarterback position. Starting it off with Aaron Rodgers this week. He's 7,900 on DraftKings. He's 8,400 on FanDuel. And I just feel like a lot's being made of this weather here in Green Bay. We know it's going to be windy. They're projecting some snow, some sleet, it looks like there. And how many times do we have to hear from Aaron Rodgers year after year after year that he loves playing in these type of game environments when the weather's under 40 degrees, when it's snow? This is just Green Bay Packer weather. And they have a Jacksonville team who plays in warm weather or warm weather climate that's coming in, and they should just be able to have their way with them. So I know the weather's a concern, but you're looking at it. He's 7,900 on DraftKings. He's 8,400 on FanDuel. But would it surprise us if he goes out there and throws for 300 yards and a couple touchdowns? I mean, he's got Devontae Adams. He's got Aaron Jones. And even with these guys, Darius Shepard on the injury report, Alan Lazard, he hasn't been activated yet off of IR, game time decision. There was another guy, I believe, St. Brown. St. Brown's on the injury report too, and Tanyan. So it's like it's going to be the Packers, main three, the three stooges there. And I just feel like if you're not playing Kyler, if you're not playing Josh Allen, Russ, Jared Goff, that you're going to want a guy who can put up points, put up touchdowns. And this Jacksonville secondary just cannot stop receivers. They cannot stop quarterbacks. So Aaron Rodgers is just leaping off the page to me, as this was looking like a great spot that everybody wanted to attack. And now with the weather, they're getting off of him. So really like Aaron Rodgers this week. Let's talk about Tom Brady. Second quarterback coming in here. He's 6,300 on DraftKings, 7,800 on FanDuel, I believe. And with a lot of conversation around Mike Davis this week of him, being the chalk, is he a good player? Is he not? Regardless here, I think that this Carolina and Tampa Bay game environment should have some points. You got an angry Tom Brady who's coming back off of that embarrassing loss, MVP caliber season, and they just, got the brakes beat off of them by the Saints there. And so they should really, look to take charge here in an NFC South matchup. So I love, especially if you're putting Mike Davis on teams, considering having Brady on the other side and maybe, getting one of the pass catchers right, or just getting Brady and hope that all the passing comes from the air. I'll talk about a running back later on that I like in this game too. But you're looking at Carolina that's facing the fourth most quarterback attempts on the season, and a Carolina defense that struggles to get pressure, only 9 sacks on the season. So with a clean pocket, Brady should have his way against this team. I really like getting to him on some lineups as a GPP play. Let's go into running backs here, and I'm going to talk about Nick Chubb, 6,800 on DraftKings, 8,200 on FanDuel. He is going to be active this week, and I believe they're getting Wyatt Teller on the offensive line back, who's missed a couple weeks, and that could really have affected Kareem Hunt's upside, as Wyatt and Chubb had been out in the same games and left Chubb to the backfield to himself, but really having a hard time on the run. And Wyatt Teller is PFF's highest graded run blocker. So I just love getting to some exposure on Nick Chubb going under the radar here. That game environment is looking ugly with weather concerns as well too. We know that Cleveland, Kevin Stefanski, they love to run the ball. They've done it with Chubb, who's, have a couple games of not only double digits, but close to 20 touches in games where he's been successful. Houston allowing the second most rushing touchdowns and the second most yards to opposing backs. He's a home favorite. Love him on FanDuel, especially at that price tag. I think he's just going to be overlooked. Another guy who's getting overlooked is Miles Sanders. He's 6,400 on DraftKings, 7,700 on FanDuel. And I love the play more so on DraftKings because of the price and the guys that he's priced around. You look at it, Aaron Jones is going to be the chalk at 7,100, about $700 more than he is. I think James Robinson will get some look because he's, in an ugly weather environment game, so to speak, and the offense runs to him at 6,600. People might want to, hold out for Chase Edmonds if he's going to be active, if Drake's going to miss, and that's a later game. And Josh Jacobs, I think, is carrying some ownership too. And he's, he really doesn't catch passes. You're looking at a New York Giants team that's allowing the most targets and receiving yards, plus the second most receptions to opposing backs. And Miles Sanders just coming off fresh the injury report. He could be the Christian McCaffrey this week, where Christian McCaffrey last week coming off the injury report, people are kind of overlooking him. but I don't want to overlook Miles Sanders. 6, healthy games. He's seen 20 plus or more touches there. I love getting to Miles Sanders this week. Another running back that I want to touch on here is Leonard Fournette. He's 5,500 on DraftKings, 6,600 on FanDuel. And I really think, again, this kind of shapes up to be a DraftKings play. At 5,500, he really gives you some salary relief there. And you're loving that over the past couple weeks. He's outsnapped Rojo 84-33, I believe, over the past 3 weeks. And since week 7 coming back, he's leading the backfield in snap share, rush share, and target share. So, we don't know how they're going to play with Fournette and Rojo if the game script kind of is close, right? But we know definitely, like, if Carolina's putting up points on the other side, that Fournette is going to be on the field. He's going to see targets. You love that. In total, the Carolina defense has allowed 11 touchdowns to opposing backs. I think he's good leverage off of a chalky guy in Duke Johnson. So I definitely love that. And Carolina actually has decent rushing numbers, but they've been terrible against pass catching backs, the second most targets, most receptions, and 5th most yards allowed. So love getting to some Leonard Fournette this week on DraftKings especially. And another DraftKings special here is JD McKissick. It's a revenge game narrative. We talk about it on the DJ Nation pod so many times how much I love these type of narrative plays, and he's back in Detroit. This is only a DraftKings specific play as he comes in at 4,900 there. I don't think you even consider playing him on FanDuel, but you love that he's 4th in receptions on the year in total of backs. And then Rich Rebar from Sharp Football Stats, he had a stat where since week 3, he's got 44 targets, and that's second to Alvin Kamara, who I think had 55 or something like that. So he's definitely been utilized in the passing game, more so when it's a negative game script. And we'll kind of see how this game goes here with, I think, Matthew Stafford's playing, no Kenny Galladay though. So can Detroit put up points and kind of force Washington to throw? But with Alex Smith starting, we should see, more check down passes, lower A dots, and McKissick just shapes up favorably there. Lions are number 30 in DVOA versus the running backs. I think, he could be a extreme leverage play. Sticking with Washington as we move on to wide receivers, I want to talk about Terry McLaurin. And Terry McLaurin facing this Detroit team, I talked about it last week with Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, and they just didn't hit because the running back Dalvin Cook, he smashed. He broke the slate. So they don't have a Dalvin Cook in Washington, Antonio Gibson and JD McKissick there. They don't have that same type of, breakaway, just blow up the slate type of skill set to kind of do so. And Terry McLaurin does. He's 6,800 on DraftKings, 7,000 on FanDuel. I think he'll be overlooked in both places. And you look at these guys like Keelan Cole, DeAndre Hopkins, they both had 100 yards, but even players without 100 yards, I talked about it last week. Anthony Miller went off for 4 for 76 and 1. Julio Jones 8 for 97. Calvin Ridley 5 for 69 and 1. And even last week, Justin Jefferson 3 for 64, which that doesn't really give you what you need. But with only 20 attempts from Cousins, if we can get more attempts there from Alex Smith and him peppering Terry McLaurin, who is the alpha receiver in this offense. I love it. 7 receptions in his past 3 games. And even though we think of him as that air yard guy, right? The guy who's just going deep passes there when Haskins and Kyle Allen were there, he still leads the league in yards after catch and yak. So I really do think this is setting up for a great week for Terry McLaurin to really pile up points here and even go for, mid-20s to even 30 points on DraftKings, as even with Desmond Trufant on the other side. Like these guys, Jeffrey Okudah, they can't stop. They can't stop Terry McLaurin. So I love him. Another guy that I want to touch on is Brandon Cooks, 5,300 on DraftKings, 6,300 on FanDuel. I mean, DraftKings especially, I don't know what they're doing with this guy and his price. What does his target share need to be for them in order to price him up? It's ridiculous. You're looking at, 9 targets, 12 targets in his past 4 games. And since, Bill O'Brien's been fired and weather concerns, I think that takes out Will Fuller from this game, but we know that the Texans love to pass. And if on the other side, Chubb's getting going, Hunt's getting going, if Cleveland's able to put up points, we should see them, throwing even more on the Houston side. And he should kind of garner some of those short area targets there. So I really like Brandon Cooks to get peppered this week, and 5,300, I just think is just a misprice on DraftKings. And talk about a mispriced receiver. Well, I got two more for you here, but really I want to talk about Deontay Johnson, who's 5,200 on DraftKings, 5,700 on FanDuel. Ben Roethlisberger has been ruled in on Saturday off of that COVID list. And, this Cincinnati secondary is dealing with injuries all over the place in the secondary, just a ton of guys who are questionable or could be expected to miss. And Deontay Johnson has just been so consistent in this offense, double-digit targets in 4 out of 5 healthy games. You absolutely love that. And on FanDuel, I have no idea what they're doing at 5,700. It's absolutely incredible. This guy just had 10 targets last week against a Dallas team where, that game script went crazy with Dallas staying close and taking the lead and them needing to throw. But in a home environment, Big Ben has smashed in home environments in the past. They get up for this Cincinnati game every year. And I just think he's the most trustworthy receiver there. And if we're getting, double-digit targets from a guy here who's all the way down, priced on both sides, it's just ridiculously mispriced. You're looking on FanDuel, T. Higgins and Emmanuel Sanders and Alan Lazard even all priced above him. It makes no sense to me. So get Deontay Johnson into lineups this week. Feel pretty confident about that. Last receiver I'm going to talk about is Josh Reynolds. He's 3,500 on DraftKings. I believe he's somewhere like 5,000 on FanDuel. And it's really crazy to look at the numbers that Reynolds has been putting up over the past couple of weeks. Leads the team in end zone targets on the season, not even the past couple of weeks, but on the season. Went into that bye with a strong game there. And what it really comes down to for me is Reynolds gives you a $3,500 receiver on DraftKings when you're looking at, 9 targets in his last game against Miami, 8 targets against Chicago, the 4 receptions there. If he somehow gets a touchdown in this game, I just feel like he could be the tilt. Everybody wants to play Kupp. Everybody wants to play Woods. And I think Josh Reynolds is definitely going under the radar. You could be sitting there. This is an afternoon game, and by playing Josh Reynolds in that game, it gives you leverage to kind of go elsewhere and pay up in other spots if Kupp and Woods, who are priced up because of the matchup against Seattle, aren't hitting. But you're looking at the wide receivers that have gone against Seattle. I mean, there's a stat out there with 20 different wide receivers having double-digit fantasy points against Seattle. So it's not just the wide receiver 1, the wide receiver 2 who's smashing. I mean, Gabriel Davis last week, went off against the Seattle secondary. They absolutely cannot stop anybody when it comes to receiving. So I think Jared Goff could find Josh Reynolds here. Favorable environment there. He's cheap. I love him. He was going to be in my building blocks article, but I do think there's ways for that not to succeed. So I like the top low and play there going with him. And another guy in the same game who's cheap as I round out this week's top low and plays is Jacob Hollister. You see the jersey right there in the back. Jacob Hollister and me, we go back to 2019. I have an affinity for him because he got me second in a GPP on FanDuel. But you're looking at this, and what it comes down to is since week 8, he's seeing 6 less snaps than Olsen, 7 less snaps than Will Dissly, but he has the most targets, reception, and yards of that group on the team. And so I like this game environment. A lot's been said about the Rams secondary and how tough they've been on wide receivers, but we know Russ is going to look to cook. Russ is going to look to find ways to, kind of get into this, expose this matchup, right? And so I'm looking at Jacob Hollister, and the price tag on him, he's 27 on DraftKings. I don't know if you could play him on FanDuel there where you really need a touchdown. It just doesn't make sense. But on DraftKings, to kind of get you some salary relief, I like getting to Jacob Hollister. If he does somehow find a touchdown, you're going to be chilling. And just, with ownership coming on Waller, Hawkinson, fans, Evan Ingram, Dallas Goedert being the chalk, Austin Hooper, and these guys, $1,000, $2,000 more than a guy like Jacob Hollister. And if they really don't, meet their expectations in this game or in these games on week 10, I really think that you can get some leverage here by going cheap at tight end. So there you have it. I mean, it's kind of crazy, but Reynolds and Hollister, I guess, for all the money in that Rams Seattle game. That's going to do it for the week 10 top low on plays. Appreciate you guys rocking with me, rocking with the Fantasy Authority all year. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, comment on the videos. Tell me what I get right. Tell me what I get wrong. I appreciate it. You can find me on Twitter at @RyanAlexander_W. That does it for week 10. I will see you guys back again for week 11. And until then, go out and get this money. Peace.